Hello, welcome back to HR Horrors. I'm George Akel. Before we continue with today's video, I'd like to ask you once again to please subscribe to this YouTube channel so you get the latest videos when they're released. And if you like this video, please do click the like button at the end. Thank you. Today's video is titled Spreadsheet Pete. Now, there was a large organisation with a large number of staff who was going through the phases of the year, and come third quarter, the finance team raised the red flag that there were significant increases in allowances, and they couldn't identify why these allowances had increased in value by so much in the profit and loss account. So they asked HR to explain whether it may have been an increase in the number of people being awarded allowances, or the increase in the value of allowances because of some regulatory change. So HR was adamant that there were no increases in staff that would warrant such an increase in allowances, and there certainly weren't any mandated regulatory changes to the allowances. So they began to look deeper, and they identified that yes, indeed, the allowance numbers had significantly increased. So, the quick thing to do was to call the payroll vendor to come in and check out the allowance calculation. So all fingers and all eyes were being pointed at the payroll vendor unfairly, because you've got to let the process go through to be able to determine where the issues were. The payroll vendor quickly realised that their system was calculating correctly, and indeed they had no concern about that because they knew it was being calculated correctly for other people in the market, other businesses that were using their payroll system. So they weren't concerned about that. So a deeper look into the situation determined that, in actual fact, what had been happening was that the payroll folks, rather than allowing the payroll system to calculate the allowances, were calculating them externally and then inputting final numbers into the system, therefore overriding the calculation of the payroll system. Now, that's all good and well if the worksheet they were using was correct, but Spreadsheet Pete was the spreadsheet master for the HR department, and Spreadsheet Pete put together this U-Butte allowance calculation worksheet for the payroll people, who were very happy and very excited to use it, even though they had a system in place that was meant to calculate it on an official system. They continued to do it this way. Now, once the payroll vendor explained that this was a matter of being overwritten, the auditors came in and looked at the worksheet and looked at the process and determined that Spreadsheet Pete had done a great job, except for one little fine detail. Rather than multiplying the numbers by a percentage, Spreadsheet Pete was dividing the numbers, therefore getting a much higher value for the allowances. Now, the outcome here was that the organisation had overpaid close to $500,000 US in allowances to their staff over the course of 3 quarters. Quite a significant number. That's a loss to the shareholders, that's a loss to the organisation, and that's a significant reputational loss for the HR function. Now, there are lessons to be learnt from this. Every organisation has a Spreadsheet Pete. Spreadsheet Pete generally puts together the list for the annual Christmas party in a nice, neat spreadsheet. Spreadsheet Pete can get all your lottery numbers together for the group's sweep in the lottery. And Spreadsheet Pete can do a whole host of other things that will amaze and dazzle those not familiar with spreadsheets. But Spreadsheet Pete should never be taking the place of a software system that manages the payroll of an organisation. Now, let's be clear, spreadsheets are a great tool. I use them myself for keeping data personal data, my own thing. I have a spreadsheet that has all the list of all my books, and that's all fine and well. If that's not going to cause any damage to anybody. Now, the thing with spreadsheets, they should never replace a system, let alone an HR system or a payroll system. They don't have the appropriate audit checks or audit trail within them to determine when they're changed and who's changing them. And of course, they're open to access by other people, unauthorized people, if they're not password protected, and they can be changed. And they should never, ever, ever be considered to be the source of truth for an HR function, or for any function that may be. Now, spreadsheets where you're going to have data in them, say you download data from a system and you put it into the spreadsheet to manipulate, massage it, and then put it into a report. If they're confidential, it should always be password protected. It should always be stored in a segregated area of the data system, so not on a shared drive. It should only be central to those that need to access it. There should always be a naming convention in place so people know exactly what that worksheet contains based on the agreed naming convention of the organisation. And they should also be controlled with a methodology to determine which worksheet came first, second, third, fourth, etc. So that's a version control approach. So you can track the changes along the line. Now, for organizations, they should always, what they should do is ensure that they have a catalog of worksheets or access databases or whatever it is that they use to input into systems, if they've got to do it. I mean, regardless, whatever system it is, you must know what it is, you must know what sheets are going into it, and they must be reviewed and audited internally to ensure they comply with your requirements. Secondly, where possible, look at an external software system to eliminate the need for using spreadsheets for critical data and critical calculations. And thirdly, they should strive to replace them where they can. They should also implement policies where they cater for the use of such software, such spreadsheets, to ensure that people follow the rules and regulations. Now at GOVERNHR, we've had extensive experience reviewing software platforms, payroll, HR software platforms, and also looking at the workflow to identify where external software has been used, spreadsheets, etc. are being used, and to help organisations to eliminate the need for those by implementing the calculations into a proper software system or eliminating the need for it altogether. So once again, please do subscribe to this YouTube channel so you get the latest videos when they arrive. And also click the like button if you like this video. Check out our webpage. Drop us a line if you've got any questions or if you've got any requests for support. Thanks again. Cheers.